Hello folks, my name is Mark and this is Why I Hate the World. So there's a meme, I guess you would call it, going through right-wing circles now, this idea of fake news, which got its start during the election. And where does that come from? Well, the idea of fake news was basically there's less than reputable news sources that would create obviously fake stories in order to get, clickbait revenue. And more often than not, they took advantage of conservatives. So you'd see some really ridiculous story, something like, Hillary Clinton's staffer murdered or something like that in connection with Benghazi, that kind of thing. Something like that. And then they would take that and make a really, a news story that looked like it was real. And they would get 5 million views on it because everybody on the conservative side would just share it. And it's because conservatives tend to not check their sources, especially the Trump supporters, tend to not check their their sources. When they see something that supports their worldview, they spread it far and wide because it's all about emotion for them. That's why. And there was an interview on HuffPost actually about one of the content creators for one of these fake news sites who said, well, we tried doing it, we tried doing some pro-Hillary ones, and it would never go anywhere because the Democrats and the liberals and the Hillary supporters always check their sources. They would look at it and they'd investigate it and find out that it was BS and they wouldn't share it. So that's become a kind of a rallying cry. And so much so that Trump himself has even said that a couple of times. There was a press conference right before he became president where he one of the guys from CNN was trying to get a question in, and he basically said, no, not you, don't be rude, you're fake news, not you, right? So basically, the mantle of fake news has come in conservative circles to mean anything that is critical of Republicans or critical of the alt-right or critical of Donald Trump. Anything that contradicts their worldview and their made-up alternative facts, right? That's suddenly fake news. And the thing is that, he's the fake fucking president, okay? It's ridiculous. So Donald Trump is a showman, first and foremost, okay? He's not a businessman. He's a showman, right? Borderline, what did I think John Oliver called him, a bullshit merchant. He's basically like P.T. Barnum. That's the kind of business that Trump runs, right? It's all about looks, okay? And that's what his personality is like. Trump Tower is filled with gold. Everything's gold. The curtains are gold, right? But then when you actually go inside of it, you find out that it's all it's not kept up, the storerooms are messed up. The fucking rooftop garden is in disrepair. There's an article on it, which if I'll find it and I'll put the link in the thing, where a reporter back during the campaign took a tour of the Trump Tower and just noticed how fucking decrepit everything was, right? When you're in the lobby, it looks really nice and opulent and all that. When you go and you investigate the kitchens, when you go into the bathrooms, into the storerooms and all the other places, it's fucking all messed up, because it's all about looks, right? I mean, I even heard I saw a thing on the internet where Trump is replacing the curtains in the White House with gold curtains. It's like, why? What? Because it's all about looks to this fucking guy. And that's how he ran his campaign, right? And I don't see any reason why why is he going to change? That's how he's going to run the presidency. Just to give some examples, okay, about this showmanship, right? Which, it doesn't always necessarily translate to the truth. He's, for example, there was one, when he first started his announcement to run, he paid actors $50 to come cheer for him. So they found a memo from a casting company that put out a call for extras to come down and get paid $50 to hold pro-Trump signs and cheer for him as he, came down his golden escalator in Trump Tower to make his announcement. So he couldn't even like get enough support. He didn't even have enough supporters at the beginning, to come cheer for him. So he fucking hired people to make it look like there were people. It's a fucking joke. Then there was a real famous, like notorious press conference that he gave after the Republican primaries, where because Mitt Romney was disparaging. Mitt Romney was criticizing him because all of his businesses failed. The Trump Airlines and stuff like that. They all failed, right? And he came out in this press conference, and he had this table behind him with all of these Trump products, right? And there were Trump steaks and Trump water and Trump wine and vodka and Trump magazines, right? And he went on this press conference saying how these are all my successful businesses. We have the steaks and they're $50 a steak, and the water, I own it. And it was all baloney. Every single thing on that table was stuff that he didn't own or already went out of business. The steaks, you can't buy Trump steaks anymore. The venture is done with. It's gone. There was if you go to the Sharper Image, there's a link that says no longer available for purchase, right? And the steaks that he had were from a different company, right? They were steaks that he bought and relabeled for the purpose of that fucking press conference, and they actually came from a company called Bush Brothers. So that's fucking, ridiculous, right? And then there was the magazine, which he took out and said, this is the magazine that I give to all of my Trump, my Trump properties, and he threw it out to the audience, right? And the magazine was called Jewel of Palm Beach, which he doesn't own the publisher, right? So that's not his magazine. That magazine comes out once a year. Okay, that's one of those magazines that you get like when you go to a hotel and they have lifestyles of blah, blah, blah. And it's just like a thing that, it's not a fucking real magazine. It's just like a coffee table thing that they have there for when you're like bored waiting for your room to get booked and shit. He had a real magazine, and that went out of business in 2009. All right. Then he also had the Trump Winery, right, which he claimed to own. It's not owned by him. It's owned by his son, Eric Trump, right? Well, you could say, well, that's close enough. Well, if you go on, the website there, you see that the winery it's not affiliated with Donald Trump or the Trump Organization or any of its affiliates, right? So he doesn't own it. He doesn't own a winery, okay? His son owns a winery. It has no connection to him at all. Same thing with the vodka, too. The vodka was also discontinued. So he just basically just lied right there. Lied, that's not a business that he owns. The same thing with the water, okay? The Trump water that he had on display, that wasn't owned by him either. It's like a company that he pays to put their label on it. That's not the same thing. It's all showmanship, And now that he's, it continued on, now that he's president, he's doing the same thing. His fucking, he had a speech about how he was going to, divest himself of all of his businesses, right? And there was, a press conference, and there was these big stacks of paper on a table behind him in folders, right? Talking about these are all the conflict of interest documents, wherever the fuck those are, right? And, claimed that these were the docs that he was using to turn his businesses over to his sons. And then a reporter gets close to the table and sees that all of the papers are blank. It's a prop. They don't, there was no writing on any of the papers. All the folders were blank. All the paper was blank. It was like crisp. It was like you just took it out of the ream of paper, It was bullshit. It's a prop, right? And then the same thing, so the day before his inauguration, he's going to, he tweets out a picture of him writing a speech. He's like, I'm writing my inauguration speech, right? First off, right off the bat, that's bullshit, okay? That's what speech writers are for. No president writes their own fucking speech, okay? They probably give out themes, and maybe a couple of lines here and there, work this into it. But that's what people get paid to do that shit, okay? So the fact that he's even claiming to have written his own speech is obvious bullshit. But then the picture has him holding a piece of paper like this. He's got a piece of paper, right? And he's holding it like that. Okay, so that you can't see what's on it, all right? So you don't know that it's, you can't see any actual writing. And then he's writing with a Sharpie. It's like a fucking Sharpie, why don't you just use a crayon while you're at it, It's obviously bullshit. All right, it's staged. That's the thing. Like, the guy on the Daily Show, Trevor Noah, made a comment that these aren't. It's not the truth. They're advertisements, right? And that's what it is. He's advertising himself, right? Well, you don't have to fucking do that when you're the president. It's. And just think about that for a second. This is a man that's so fucking self-conscious, right? That he can't handle any criticism at all. That he'll even like dig the hole deeper by putting out obvious lies because he can't handle the fact that, the truth makes him look bad. That's what it is, okay? This is the guy that's going to be negotiating your trade deals. This is a guy that's, creating he's going to be approving laws that go through Congress, right? He's the guy that's going to be, squaring off with Vladimir Putin, right? We all see how that's fucking going, okay? Looks like those fucking sanctions in Russia are going away pretty soon. What's going to happen if, Putin, what if he decides to invade Latvia next, right? What if he decides to just push out, because he already invaded Crimea and took that part, So what's going to happen if he decides to just push those borders out a little bit more? Are we going to rely on the fucking phony baloney president to stand up to him? So that's the thing. It's like, so whenever you hear that, whenever you hear conservatives or Trump supporters, Trumpers or whatever the fuck they call themselves, red pillars or those assholes on the Donald on Reddit, whatever. Whenever you hear those guys talking about fake news, just remember who the real fake president is, okay? Because it's fucking, and that's what we got. That's America now, right? That's what we elected, So all of you people out there, when you pull that lever for him, and you see him go on TV and make a complete fool of himself, that's who you elected. So, adios, folks.